So, I'm pregnant.
So I always think I got tricked into this.
And then I had an incompetent cervix. How insulting. How insulting is that? Incompetent.
But I would always see like the moms would be the ones who left the office first. And I was like, am I going to become like that? And what's going to happen to my career?
And then when you're in the hospital after you give birth, they're like, okay, whose MediSave do you want to deduct? Hey, he quiet lah. He kept quiet. I'm like,
Does he have enough?
of course he has enough.
Just walk to the labour ward when I'm 9 cm dilated.
Correct. Like, hey, now, come. Fast game.
So then the question is, what's the point of having kids? Hi, I'm Estelle,
I'm Jill.
and we are the hosts of Two Tired Moms.
We'll work on that. We'll work on that. Okay, this is the pilot episode. So in the first episode, we will be talking about
Our
ourselves.
motherhood status, why we are here, how we became moms, and how we got so tired.
Oh my gosh, how we got so tired. I had a second child. That's how I got so tired.
And we are both mom of 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
Like, of course, being tired is allowed.
I think so. It needs to be normalized. Like whenever I tell my mom that I'm tired, she's like, oh, you're complaining a lot. I'm like, I really don't feel it's complaining. I feel it's just like, I gotta tell the universe I'm tired, and then the universe will hear me and say, okay, we will give you a break.
And I think like the one thing that I really hate people asking me as a mom is every day when they see me, why do you always look so tired? Why do you
Yes.
look so tired? And I'm like, I don't have an answer to that. The answer to
didn't
that is
sleep.
because I'm a mom.
Yes, didn't sleep. The babies were noisy sleepers. Just like choose out why you think I'm tired.
And it doesn't help whether or not, like, I don't know how much resources you have. I think even if you have a lot of help at home, you can still be tired.
I think that's a misconception. We will address that later on as well. Like, it takes a village to raise a kid, but does that mean you are less tired? So yes, we will get to that later. But you go first. You have 2 older kids compared to mine.
Yeah. So I have 2 kids, 8 and 5. Basically, I got married quite young at the age of 25.
That's a sign of wealth when you can get married young in this day and age. Can buy BTO, can buy house.
You know what's the best part? We got engaged and married without buying our house.
Oh.
Yeah. It is not the conventional
was love lah.
Singaporean way.
Wow, you got married out of love and not...
So I always think I got tricked into this. Did not think too hard at that time. It was like, let's get married first thing.
That's so romantic. I've never heard that ever.
Yeah, so at some point, my husband and I, we knew we wanted kids, but we never really discussed it, really.
How long were you married before you all decided you wanted kids?
Like, we knew all along kids was on the horizon.
Okay.
But for me, maybe I would have wanted a kid closer to 30, like when I was about 30 years old.
Why?
Like, I just thought that I needed more time with my husband as a couple, right? Because we got
Okay.
married at 25, and ideally I would have wanted 3 to 5 years just hanging out, doing couple things lah, like traveling, just hanging out, the honeymoon things.
That is love. Because I asked my mom, why did you want to have kids? And she said, because I got bored of your father. And similarly, I wanted to live with my husband for 1 year. And I knew after that I would probably see
Get
your face
tired.
too much already. So let's introduce a new face that I can love. So yeah.
So for us, it just happened. I think it was kind of by chance. We didn't plan for it.
Oh.
And I think it was about 2.5 years into our marriage that I got pregnant. So maybe if you think about it, the timeline was actually all right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just that at that point, I was 27, feeling like I still had a lot of things I wanted to do, right? And none of my friends around me were pregnant at that time.
Right.
They were not even in the headspace of, I want to have a kid. They were still like thinking about getting married and everything.
Yeah.
So I did not like being the first pregnant one among my friends because I had no reference point. And the only person I could really look at was my sister, who's like 2 years older than me. And even then, she had a kid in the same year as me. So she was just like a couple more months ahead. That was all the support I had in terms of like pregnancy talk.
What were some of the things you all spoke about before having the kid?
Nothing.
What?
Like, we didn't really talk much. I think it was more like seeing her go through the whole process because after that, she went to the US to give birth because her husband works there now.
Okay.
then I started hearing from her like how tough the postpartum period would be. And then when she flew back
Before
to
that, no
Singapore,
one told you about
no,
postpartum.
No, not even my mom.
Yeah, they lied. They lied to us.
Like,
yes.
nobody told me anything when I
Same.
told my parents that I was pregnant. It's just, oh, okay. I think maybe in my mindset, I was thinking,
You know
good
what?
luck to you.
The first I told my parents, I was so excited. So I was in the back seat. I took out my phone. I filmed, and I'm like, so I'm pregnant. And it was silence. I was like, how? Oh, what? Did they hear me?
April's Fool or something.
And then my mom went, so October, baby. That means exam period.
Wow, how romantic.
That was the first thing she thought of. She's a primary school teacher, and she just did the math like, okay, that's during exam period. Cannot celebrate birthday. That's not a good time.
Okay.
Then she's like, October, November. I'm like, yeah, late October. Okay, exams are over. I'm like, why is that the first thing you think about? It wasn't an excitement or anything. I'm like, oh, okay.
So anyway, I wasn't very pleased when I saw the pregnancy test. Because like I said, we didn't plan for it. Like to me, it was a total surprise. But my husband obviously said, oh, you mean you didn't know? Like, I think he was a culprit. Like,
Wait, you think he was the culprit?
Yeah.
Who else could it have been?
no. I think he planned it more than me. Because to me, it was
He
like
was
a
tracking your
complete shock.
periods, you mean?
Yeah, possibly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I think my baby was like conceived in New Zealand where we were on our family holiday with my parents. How
Oh.
romantic.
Raunchy.
So anyway, my first pregnancy was like a bit moody. I felt moody most of the time because I felt like I'm not ready to do this.
Yeah.
But I'm also not ready to give up the child, right? Because it's like, why not? Why not just roll with it? So I think that was my first kid. And the second kid came along because we actually planned for it. And I wanted my kids to have like no more than 4 years apart between the two of them so that they can just like play together and I could get this whole pregnancy thing done, over and done with. I always thought like having 2 kids would be better than just one.
So first one, no planning. As in you didn't speak about like if it were a boy, what we would do, if it were a girl, how we would raise it differently, if we do at all. And then when the second one came, did you have any conversations about that? Like, are you all religious? Would they have grown up in a...
Okay, both of us are not religious. I think what we both could agree on is that we just have to raise our kids with strong values.
Yeah, what would
Values
those
like-
values be?
Integrity, honesty, punctuality is big for him, not big for me, but like, okay. Kindness is so important. Like, rather my kid be kind and honest. I mean, I don't mind if my kid is smart.
Yeah, usually they say like, happy, kind, intelligent. I've never heard a parent say, I would like my child to be punctual.
He didn't say it out loud, but punctuality has always been a big thing with him. So I knew he was going to make sure that our kids would be like that.
I assume you and your husband are of the same race.
Yes, we are.
Do you think couples that are like biracial have more to talk about? Because my husband is Indian American, I'm Chinese Eurasian, and unfortunately both of us didn't grow up very cultured.
What do you mean?
Like he's Indian, but he's Catholic Indian, so he doesn't have any like true culture. So he doesn't like celebrate the Deepavali or anything. And I grew up with no religion, and I'm Chinese, but we never really celebrated like Chinese New Year or anything. We were talking about having kids. It's like, poor thing, what culture do they have? Because I'm not very Chinese and he's not very Indian. And this kid's just gonna grow up with no identity. And best of all, her IC will say Caucasian, which is like, what does that even mean? You're Singaporean with Indian, Chinese, Eurasian, and American. So what actually are you going to be raised as? What's your race? What's your identity? So we talked about all of that. And because he's Catholic, I know it would mean a lot for your mom if we got the kids baptized. And he's like, no, don't need. I'm like, oh, okay. So again, they're going to be raised with no religion and no culture. I'm quite like, oh dear, I don't know how to raise this
So
child.
for 2 of you, it was like no expectations from start.
Yeah, no, it was something that we did talk about, but it's like when I grew up, being Eurasian, I didn't really know what that meant as well. So I asked my mom, like, what are we? And my mom's like, you're Chinese lah, that's all, you're Chinese. Just tell people you're Chinese, then they won't ask so much questions. But of
You
course,
don't look Chinese.
exactly, so when you don't look the race, and if someone asks you, oh, what are you? And you're like, Chinese. Huh, really? Can you speak? And they're like, yeah, 是华人, Papa 是华人. Oh, 可以讲华语. I'm like, yeah. So she's going to have to experience that. And I just want the child to grow up with a strong identity of self. But then I also don't know what she is. So that's one of the few things we talked about, which we clearly, after 4 years, we have not come to a conclusion as to how we are going to instill this sense of pride. Like, I'm Chinese, but I'm also Indian. Tell me about your Indian heritage. I don't know anything. Tell me about your Chinese heritage. I also don't know anything. So like,
But on paper, they are Caucasians.
yes.
Okay.
It's very confusing. So,
Yes.
so that's what I'm currently struggling with. So I need to find more like biracial friends who have children so I can ask their advice as well. Because same, in my case, my friends didn't want to have kids. So I was the only one pregnant in a sea of people who were not married, getting married and not wanting kids. So I had no one to like really talk to about things as well.
I think the pregnancy journey was really, really isolating for me because I was at a point where no one around me was thinking of having a kid,
Yeah.
first of all. And second of all, I think in my nature of job, media and publishing, you don't see many people having kids, to be honest. It's not like the most pro-family type of industry to be in.
Facts, yeah.
So to a large extent, I was always thinking like, how is this going to impact my job? And I knew I want to continue working. And so it was like trying to manage my family life, my personal life, and my work life. Like, how is it going to come together? Will I be judged differently? Because I can tell you, like, before I got pregnant, I would think of mothers differently. Right? I had certain preconceived notions of moms at work.
Like what? Do share.
Like, maybe this is for another episode.
Okay.
But broadly, I would see moms being very busy, right?
Yeah.
And they zip in and out of work. And back in the days, like it was like 2015 when I had my first kid, punctuality and being present in the office was still a big thing.
Yes.
And back then we were kind of like also assessed on how present we were in the
Correct.
office. There was no such thing as work from home. And I could see that moms were always very particular about the times that they went in and the times they left. And I think that's this like toxic expectation at the back of my head, like, oh, you're a good worker if you stay back in the office and pull later hours, right? But I would always see like the moms would be the ones who left the office first. And I was like, am I going to become like that? And what's going to happen to my career? That was my first few thoughts, you know, when I was pregnant. And there wasn't really anyone to talk to about that. I wish I had more support. I do not blame mothers or I do not judge mothers who decide to have kids later in life because I think you just gain a lot more wisdom from seeing people around you have kids and go.
But I think this is something that has just happened in the last 5 years, I would say, where people are more open and honest about the pregnancy, firstly, the conception journey, that it doesn't just happen like that. I mean, for my first child, it took me almost a year. And then the second one, 8 months, 9 months. I'm like, why is still so long? I expected it to be faster the second time around. So I think people are a lot more open with the journey of conception and how it's not always the easiest. And they're very much more open about the pregnancy journey. There were not many people that were pregnant. So there was one lady in particular, she was very tired, she didn't get enough sleep. She wouldn't complain, but she would mention all the time that she was tired. And I literally thought my 21-year-old naive self, like, oh my gosh, you're not the first person to get pregnant. Why are you complaining so much? Not knowing how terrible...
Like, you sign up for it, why are you complaining?
Correct. Not realizing how terrible pregnancy can actually be. And then, of course, I kena the worst pregnancy both times round.
What do you mean?
My morning sickness was not just the first 3 months, it was perpetual. With my second pregnancy, it got so bad I was hospitalized because I was like dehydrated. And I had really bad migraines. And then I had an incompetent cervix. How insulting. How insulting is that? Incompetent. Like, can't you come up with a
It just
better name?
means that cervix is not that strong, right?
Yeah,
cervix
a weak cervix. It's so sad. The doctor said you have an incompetent cervix. I'm like, that's so rude.
And that is the cause of some miscarriages, right?
Yes, so it was actually, my first pregnancy was very high risk. So I was on bed rest. From my second trimester onwards, I was on bed rest, which then also made me think about, oh my gosh, my career, how? Because maternity is only X amount, and then hospitalization leave, and then recovery. So I was technically out of work for a good year, almost a year. And that was during COVID, with so many layoffs, so many like job restructuring. So I was very, very stressed out during that period as well.
I paid for all my appointments.
Yo, that's the truth. With my firstborn, I paid for everything. And then when you're in the hospital after you give birth, they're like, okay, whose MediSave do you want to deduct? He quiet lah. He kept quiet. I'm like,
Does he have enough?
of course he has enough. I mean, he's working commission, but he makes enough money. I'm like, excuse me. So I have to sacrifice my body. I pay for all the doctor's appointment. Then you still want to take my CPF? Like, hey, what have you done? What have you done? In the whole of 9 months.
He gave you the sperm.
No, I need more than that. So second time round, like, father gonna pay for this, can pay for the insurance, can do something aside from impregnate me. Okay, I need to calm down, clearly.
But how do you know when was the right time to try? Do you look at the year, the zodiac sign, or time of the month?
It happened to be a year of the rat, and my dad's zodiac is year of the rat, and his horoscope is Scorpio, so I wanted a baby to be also Scorpio.
Just like your dad.
Yeah.
Why?
I wanted 2 children, and I wanted them to be Scorpio and Cancer. Because my dad's Scorpio, my mom is Cancer, and they're soulmates.
Click. No, you got your wish lah. You got a Scorpio baby.
Yeah. Very good, right? My planning. It's very good.
How many months did it take you?
The first one was a year, almost a year. So then I got pregnant on my birthday. And then the second time was like on my baby's birthday in October. I had a feeling I was pregnant, but I didn't want to take a test yet because I wanted to drink.
Seriously.
So I drank.
Priorities.
Yeah, I drank, and then like the next 2 days later, I took a test. Like, oh, oops, I guess I'm pregnant. Didn't know. Yeah, she's a July baby, so quite good.
So you kind of got your wish.
I did.
Right.
I manifest everything I want. So like, I want a third baby, but I wanted the third baby to be an accident. Like when my eldest is 10 years old, then I'm gonna be like, oh dear, I'm pregnant again.
So you're gonna plan for the accident.
Yeah, I'm gonna plan for the accident.
Nice.
I feel after having the first one and how bad my pregnancy was, a lot of my friends were like, oh, I didn't know this. Like, I didn't know about the engorgement, how bad that can be, oversupply. Because, like if you, on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, there's always ways to increase your supply, power pumping, all these terms. But then there's no real way to manage oversupply. And the only thing they tell you to do is like, oh, ice your boobs. Which
I'll put cabbage leaves.
does not work.
How did it work for me?
Oh my gosh, I morphed into a cow. Like the amount of milk I was producing, it's ridiculous.
Like obviously in Singapore, our birth rate is declining year after year. Obviously also financial incentives alone are not enough to get people to make more kids. So then the question is, first of all, what's the point of having kids? Second of all, like what kind of innate benefits are there for a couple to have kids? Like, are there certain motives that we have that we don't talk about? Like, for example,
Motives?
having kids to say like, pass on your genes, right? And extend your legacy. And you want to have kids because then who will look after you when you're old? That's the kind of thinking that some people may have, okay? I'm not saying that you had to think about that.
Am I really shallow?
What else? Having kids so you can be on par with your peers. That's like societal external pressure. Or having just kids so that you don't regret later on in life because we know we all have that biological clock.
No, I just want girl gang. So I just want kids because they'll be like my army and they'll be loyal to me.
Oh, really?
And if I said we don't like that girl, then my daughters will, I also don't like her.
And you manifested the two
Yeah,
girls.
I have 2 girls and they are going to be my little minions. They will support me no matter what. Like today, we are not talking to daddy, we're angry at daddy.
What about your husband? What
Sucks to be
his
you.
motive to be a dad?
Oh my God, wow, what was it? I don't
think about
know.
that?
I don't think he has. He just like natural progression in life lah. Okay, we got married, we got the house, so I guess now we need kids.
Because now also it's getting increasingly common to hear about people who marry,
Yeah.
but don't necessarily want kids, or they have agreed that we'll marry but not have kids. So apparently that is also an increasingly normalized pathway.
But then you really have to have a lot of hobbies. Like, I mean, I love my husband, but after a while it's just boring. You need like,
I mean, you can like pick up a
Don't it?
lot of things, what? Go for classes, learn a new skill, go traveling. There are many, many ways to spend your money and time without having kids.
yeah. What was your motive? Don't say motive. What was your reason for having
I
children?
think my reason, like the shallow reason, was fear of regret.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I don't want to hit a certain point in my life and think that I want to have kids, but it's too late, or I'm too old for my kids. I always thought it's cool to be a young mom, but not too young.
Same. I wanted to have kids so I will have friends.
Like your kids' friends, or your
No.
kids as your friends.
Yeah, they will have to be my friend. So like, you don't have family, fine. I got my own. I've made my own friends.
And I think like I was also genuinely very curious about how my kids will turn out. Like if me and my husband made kids, how would they look like? How would they be? I think like that whole scientific experiment part. And I think for my husband, he was pretty clear from the get-go that he wants kids because he believes in a brighter future for our society. And he wants our kids to be part of that.
Wow.
Part of like contributing to the society and make the future better.
I mean, already raising
I'm
punctual
like,
kids. Well done.
sure.
We were talking about that you're open to having a third child. You already have a boy and a girl.
Yes.
Some may say that's greedy.
Yeah, everyone is saying like, yeah, you can close shop already. Your
Yeah.
life is perfect because one boy, one girl.
So, starting from the beginning, where you did not actually want the child, your husband was more excited than you. Now, fast forward, you don't mind having a third one. Why? What has changed?
I actually miss the newborn days. I hate myself for saying this. I probably will regret it, you know. And I also miss the feeling of being pregnant. Like when you think about it.
Nope.
Okay, because my pregnancy was very drama-free. Like I did not have vomiting. I just had some nausea in the first trimester. That's about it. And after that, it was smooth sailing. So I'm just like, okay, assuming
Kourtney Kardashian.
my whatever third pregnancy goes the same track, I'm happy to roll with it lah. I miss pregnancy, I miss the newborn period. Sometimes I even miss the giving birth part.
Okay, I will say, like, my first time giving birth was a mess. I was terrified and it was a mess. The second time, I got a hang of it. The third time, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna
Ace
be
this.
so good at this now.
Yeah.
It's like a personal challenge. I want to just give
Like
birth
I would
again.
just walk to the labor ward when I'm 9 cm dilated.
Correct. Like, hey, now, come. Fast game.
And I think it's true, you get better as you go
so.
along.
And it's really challenging. I'm like, oh, I can do this. I
So
can.
I think now I'm only open to the idea because my startup cost is lower already. Like I've really seen through 2 kids and I no longer have that intense pressure on myself to perform as a parent because I've already done it before.
But we're talking about support. Do you feel you had less support with the second child? Because I felt like when my second one came along, no one cared already.
Really?
Like, my first one got all the toys. Second one, no one gave anything. Like, my second born was like, oh, okay, another one, another girl.
Right.
I felt like I had less support and less people wanted to come see the baby.
Just less excited
yeah,
in
less
general.
excited in general.
I think in my case, we really did not talk about anything. We just like made decisions as we went along. We didn't have a grand plan, like, oh, when we have kids, this is where they will live in, this is who will look after them. We did not have that
Do
conversation.
you feel that that adds more stress because you're already in a stressful situation where it's like, hey, it's time to enroll the kid into kindergarten. Do we want to enroll this year or do we want to wait?
Yeah, in fact, my friends were telling me, like, when I was pregnant, asking me, hey, how come you haven't enrolled your kid yet into school? I was like, why?
Which is also something I did not know. Yeah, when she was 1.5, 1 year old, I was looking at all the sparkle tots around my area. They're all fully booked. I'm like, when are you supposed to enroll? And they're like, once the kid is born, you start enrolling. I'm like, oh, wow.
Okay, in my case, because we live in a mature estate, there are plenty of slots.
Mine's also
Did not
mature
have
estate,
to.
but like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
So y'all decided as it went on when you were going to
Yeah,
put
I
the kids
think
in
like
school.
only after we got pregnant, we announced it to the family, and then at some point, maybe closer to my 3rd trimester, his parents said they wanted to help to look after the baby.
Okay.
And actually, my father-in-law was the one who raised his hand. He had just
So
retired
cute.
back then, and
Yeah.
when I heard that, I thought it was a joke. Honestly, I was like, father. I never had a male caregiver in my life, so to imagine a male caregiver for my kids was like difficult, and plus it was a daughter. So to me, the first thing is like, is he up for it? Why does he want to care for my child?
Oh my gosh, just take the help.
I was like, what? I was thinking legit, because I always thought that we would get help or leave the kids at infant care, just like a lot of working mothers did. I thought that
Right.
was the cool thing to do. Like send your kid to infant care.
What?
So,
It is another sign of wealth if you can afford infant care.
okay, what I did not realize was the strain of the cost
Yeah.
and the fact that they're not going to take your kid if your kid is sick or
Yeah.
any sign of being sick. So my husband, on the other hand, was like very ready to accept the help. I mean, it was his family, right? And he also acknowledged the cost-saving part of it. So I went along lah. I mean, like, what do I do, right? I have help on hand being offered to me, and it's my direct family member, right? So I did not reject it. I went along. And I think in a way it wasn't a bad decision, even though at that time I was really in 2 minds about that.
We stay in the West, and my husband's family stays in Serangoon. Before we were even pregnant, right? When we were married, we were discussing who is going to be the primary caregiver. Are we going to have a helper? Can we afford a helper? Is it going to be a live-in helper or like some funny situation? And it was decided that my parents, because they literally lived across the road from us, they would help us. And when I did finally get pregnant and I told my parents, once my mother said, oh, exam period, after exam period, okay, she goes, I can retire and be a grandmother now. So she was very willing to like help out. 1 year after, she said, I'm sorry, your child is not that interesting. I'm going back to work.
That's your mom.
Yeah. So she went back to work. She was like, being a grandmother, quite boring actually. So when she retired, I thought I would get the help, right? No, she retired. Wow, the first month, oh, my friend taking me out for lunch, my colleagues taking me out. I'm like, hey, hello, where's this help that you promised me?
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? Like when you get help from family members, how much can you ask of them? Because all of this is voluntary.
Correct.
And you can't really put a monetary value to it. And they are family, right? So which is more important? Your relationship with your family or your relationship with your baby and your husband?
Yeah, I think it's good to have guidelines that should be respected. Like if you have a guideline like there's no TV before the age of 2, which I know like that's a very big thing right now. So before 2 years old, don't give them any screen time, or like don't give them so much sweets.
Or no sweets at all?
Yeah.
How about no soft drinks?
Correct.
I wish I thought of all these earlier.
See, that's what we
I
spoke
just
about.
did not know.
Communication. Very important.
But it's just like communication with family members, especially in-laws, can become very challenging.
Like I would just tell them that. And I think basic things like a bedtime and screen time, you follow that lah. But sweets, I mean, that's why they say grandparents spoil kids.
Yeah.
So I just hope as far as possible not give her a sweet every day. But I just found out that every day when my dad picks my daughter up, he gives her a lollipop. A lollipop, not like a small gummy bear, no, a
stays in your mouth
lollipop.
for like 1 hour.
But you know, accept the help that you receive. So be grateful. Gratitude.
Yeah, and I think it's always a give and take. Even if you send your kid to infant care or child care, it will just be other things you have to deal with.
Exactly.
So it is like, pick your battle.
Okay, so recap what we spoke about. You got married out of love because a BTO was not on the horizon. Your husband wanted the firstborn more than you wanted it. And now you're on your third one, you're hoping for a third one.
Not actively planning.
Okay. But the lesson I think is communication. You got to plan, because the first one you were just like, oh, you know, if it happens, it happens. The second one you planned for it, and it was a better delivery, better process, better recovery as well. And on my side, trying to figure out how we're going to raise this mixed child and what her strong identity is going to be.
Now that you have manifested your 2 girls
Correct.
in the zodiac
girl gang.
signs,
Yeah. But for now, it's time for a nap.
let's go.